Welcome to the Leading Conversations podcast, sponsored by the Excel Leadership Network. On each episode, JD Pairing will have conversations with church planting pastors and leaders from around the country. You can learn more about how to connect with Excel at the end of this podcast. Let's join JD now and listen in on this leading conversation.
Well, welcome to another edition of Leading Conversations with the Excel Leadership Network. This is our podcast. Today we have the magnificent Jeremy McGarity with us, live and in person from San Diego. Not really live, on Zoom. But anyway, hey, Jeremy, thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here, man.
What's the temperature in San Diego today? Is it 74 and nice?
It is exactly, again, it's not easy every day, but it's 78 right now. So it's a little warm. It's a little warm. So yeah, it's not easy. Someone's got to serve here though.
Yeah, well, we just appreciate you, just going through that type of weather adversity for the Lord. So
whatever I can do.
Hey, just started, tell a little bit about growing up and then what that was like and how you ended up coming to Christ. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I grew up in a home that we didn't go to church. We didn't have a church background, any of that. It was a broken home. And so let's see, dad was alcoholic for a while. He overcame it. My mom had many men in her life. She overcame that as well. But she did. So my dad's married 3 times. His third one has stayed, and so they've been married about 30 years. And then my mom was married 3 times, divorced 3 times. So those relationships was always very interesting. Men coming in and out of the house, getting to know a new step family, all that stuff was very odd. But no church involvement. And then grew up just kind of free in terms of parents had discipline, but I could play both sides, and so I would. Whether it was Christmases or whatever, we were, both sides of the family and all these different step parents. So it's just odd. But I love sports. And so sports was a big deal to me and playing baseball, basketball, football, everything. And I think there was a realization that, the way my parents were doing it doesn't work. Like it clearly doesn't work. They're not happy. They're not staying together. And I think that was always kind of a seed that was in my mind. Like, you could either follow that pattern, I guess, what a lot of people do, you either follow that pattern, or you just kind of go, that doesn't seem to be, they're not happy. And they're, this is constant struggle and strife. And so, that was kind of a first seed. Then going on, I got drafted out of high school, and I was with the St. Louis Cardinals, and I was in their minor league system, and I was in Savannah, Georgia. And there's a guy on our team who
is that the Savannah? That's not the Savannah Bananas or whatever.
Same place, yeah. It's now the Bananas, yeah.
Okay.
Same Grayson Stadium, same stadium. Yep, that was a very pivotal stadium in my life, pivotal town in my life, because the guy on our team, third baseman, I was a pitcher, and he was our third baseman, and he claimed to have faith in Christ, and so he wasn't an in-your-face guy, but he said he was a Christian, and he would go to this baseball chapel thing. And I kind of would push his buttons, or try to push his buttons, try to get him to break, say things to him, whatever, just because I thought Christians were supposed to be soft and weak, and just had that image in my mind. And he was really consistent in his life, something that I wasn't. So if he had a game where he went 4 for 4, he got 4 hits, 4 at bats, he was the same guy as if he went 0 for 4 and struck out 4 times. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? Because if I had a good game, I was the guy buying everybody drinks at the bar, and I'm telling everybody, hey, we're the best, blah, blah, blah. And I was up. If I had a bad game, I went in a dark corner by myself and isolated. And so it was like my constant roller coaster versus watching him with his consistency. And I finally asked him after we're halfway through the season, and I'm like, what is your deal? Like, what is your deal? He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, there's something about you. And he just said, well, he goes, you're probably talking about Jesus. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And so he just said, man, that's it. I just know there's more to life than this. This isn't everything to me. I'm glad to do it. It's fun. This isn't everything. He goes, there's a lot more to life than this. And that kind of stuck in my head originally. And then we're on a bus ride, long 12-hour trip on the bus, and he's reading the Bible. Everyone else is just going crazy, whatever. But then all of a sudden, one guy's like, what are you reading? And he's reading Revelation. And he's starting to talk about it. And another guy comes over, wait a minute, it says that? And then another guy, what? What does it say? What? And then all of a sudden, most of the team is surrounding where he's sitting with the Bible open. And I was like, this is interesting. I was sitting back listening too. And so that was another seed that was planted. Finally, I started asking him questions. And he said, why don't you come to Baseball Chapel? Just come to Baseball Chapel. Check it out. And Baseball Chapel, there's a chaplain in every town, minor league, major league. You go to chapel, it's 10 minutes or so before the game. You're in your uniform. You've already had batting practice. It's like you're just waiting for the game to start. And it's 10 minutes. It's either in the clubhouse or in the bullpen or the dugout, but it's quick.
It's really good discipline as a pastor. I did that for years, to be able to do a message in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Especially with the background music going or stuff going. Yeah.
Try to keep their attention for a short period of time.
Oh, my goodness.
But it's also what got me, and this is why I still do notes to this day, is he handed out notes. I didn't have a Bible, and I didn't know really what he was talking about, but he had a couple quick little points, and he had a few verses, just a little half sheet. And I was like, I kept that. And it was something where he just a couple quick points and shared real quick. And I thought, that's interesting. Then I asked my friend, Mark, I said, Mark, like, what does that mean? And he's like, all right, let's talk. So he would answer my questions. Mark, our third baseman, he would just answer our questions. And he finally said, I had a bunch of fake issues with the Bible, like a lot of people, right? The Bible's just full of stories. The Bible's not relevant for today. I would use the cliche stuff. And he said, have you ever read it? And I was just like, I did that whole thing. He goes, why don't you start reading it? Just start reading it. Ask me any questions you have. So he pointed me to the book of John. And man, by the time I wasn't even finished with it, in my apartment in Savannah, Georgia, I got down on my knees in my little apartment room and asked the Lord, I said, this is real. And you are who you say you are. I'm yours. Like, you tell me what to do, because this is unbelievable. This is incredible. And I told Mark about that. And he was like, right on, man. Now you need to continually read, like consistently read and apply it to your life and make sure you're doing what the Bible says. And so I went from John to the book of James, changed my life. From that point forward, I've been in the Bible ever since. And so that's kind of how I gave my life to the Lord. And then I went home and had to find a church. And I went to Shadow Mountain, which is David Jeremiah's church. They had just built a new building, and I saw it in the paper, of all things. I saw, I'm like, where am I going to go? I don't know where to go. Oh, here's a new church building. Okay, I'll go over there. I didn't know who he was. And just sat in the very last back row in the balcony. And thankfully, they had words on the screen for the songs. I had no idea what these songs were, what everyone was doing. And I was able to sing along, and that kind of got me started on my faith journey. Fast forward another 4 years, hadn't really done much with my faith. And I'm in Duluth, Minnesota, and I'm playing independent league baseball. And there's a guy on our team named Bob Zupsik, and Bob is on fire for Christ. And I'd seen him at a Pro Athletes Outreach Conference, which is a conference for professional baseball players. That's a Christian conference. And he goes, hey, you were at that conference. And he's just got those crazy eyes, He's like, we're going to save this team, man. We're going to save this team. You and I are the only Christians on this team. And I was like, oh, no. Here we go. But he goes, let's start a Bible study. All right, start a Bible study. So he starts this Bible study. We had 7 guys show up. It's on the road. We're in a hotel. We put it, come to room 210. And 7 guys did. And Bob led us. And I was just like, wow, this is very powerful how he is helping us understand the Bible. The very next day, he got traded. Not because of the Bible study. That's just baseball. He got traded to the Florida Marlins. And he goes, as he's leaving, Bob, what are we going to do about the Bible study? He goes, you're going to do it. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. There's no way I'm going to do that. And he's driving away. And he said, God will lead. I still hear him as he yells out the window, God will lead. I'm like, no. So with fear and trepidation, man, the next road trip I did it. And all we did was open the Bible, the Gideon Bible that was in the hotel, and started reading Matthew and passed it around to those guys, 6 guys. And, at that point, it started growing. So the next Bible study, we had 8 or 10 guys. And then and by the end of the season, we had 18 of the 21 guys on our team coming to this Bible study. And it wasn't anything other than the Word of God was opened. And what we would do is pass it around, and I would write down questions on a yellow pad. Now, back then, it was the yellow pages. You remember the yellow pages?
Oh, yeah.
And I would find a local pastor, and I would call him from the hotel. I'd say, hey, we got some questions. We're in a Bible study. And I would write down his answers and tell the guys. And so it started growing. And that's where I was like, if I knew what I was talking about, I bet I could help these guys. And from that point, I went home, tried to find a Bible college. I had no idea there was a Bible college right in my backyard called Christian Heritage College, which is now San Diego Christian College. And David Jeremiah was president of the college. And I had no idea. And I just walked in, and after I found it, I knew about their basketball team. Their basketball team had made the paper because they had won a Christian college national championship. And I thought, okay, I'll go check that out. It sounds like might have some. I didn't know they had Bible programs. Like, I didn't know you can get a Bible degree. So I sat down with the counselor, and she said, what do you want to study? And I said, the Bible. And she goes, okay, we got 4 different Bible degrees available. I said, I go, yeah, I can get a degree in the Bible. And she said, yeah, you can get a degree in pastoral studies, with an emphasis in pastoral studies. I said, I don't want to be a pastor. Then you can get an emphasis in youth ministry. I said, I don't want to be a youth guy, a youth pastor. Well, then there's missions. And I was like, I don't want to be a missionary. And she said, well, the only other one we have is biblical studies with an emphasis in exposition. I had no idea what that meant. And I just remembered the expos. The expos was a shortened name of the exposition, right? It was the Montreal Exposition.
I didn't realize the expos were Bible expositors.
Right? It was. And so that's the only thing and I said, yeah, that's the one. If I could study the Bible, and that's the one. So that's how that happened, man. I started learning from scratch. And this is why I'm so loyal and committed to San Diego Christian College. Is because they took a kid that barely knew anything about the Bible, and they trained me up. I mean, the people the professors, some of them are still there, that taught me from nothing, from scratch. I couldn't hardly write a paper. I mean, I'm from public school. I didn't know, I couldn't hardly write a paper. And they just walked with me, sat with me, took time, and taught me how to exposit scripture. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. And so even before I was finished college, I had a youth pastor job in the off season. My baseball career ended with a shoulder injury. All of a sudden I'm in ministry. I still got a year left of Bible college, and we were off and running. So that's the longer version of that story a little bit.
Well, so it sounds like ever since that God will lead deal, that was like your call to ministry.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And I thought that's what I would do. I thought I would be playing baseball and leading Bible studies. And I found out about the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that because sports plays such a huge part in my life. That's what I'm going to do. And God just he had me do youth ministry, became a youth pastor, and watching the impact on these kids and the need that was there was incredible. And then just noticing kids coming to the Lord. We did the skate park we would do once a month, and we had a small youth group. We had like 30 kids in the youth group, but the skate park was attracting a couple hundred kids, and then 100 of them gave their lives to Christ. And on a weekend, I thought, oh wow, there's something here. And then it started growing from there. And then I went up to High Desert Church after that, adult ministries, and that kind of led on the path of, I want to reach people for Christ. I really want to see people's lives change, like mine was impacted through the Word of God, not through anything other than just make it really clear in the Word of God what God says. Don't muddy it up, because I always go back to that Bible study. All we did was pass the Word around. That was it. Like, we didn't do that. There was no like preaching. There was nothing. And guys were like, what does the Word say? One after another. And I still think people are wondering, what does the Bible say? Like, what does God require? What does he want me to do? And then it's up to you. I just tell you what he says. You do it. you'll be blessed. And so that's kind of, that definitely led on to my ministry life.
Now, how did you get up to high desert? I want to talk about it because today, I don't know when this is going to be released, but today's, National Oikos Day. It's 8:15. Got the little note from Tom Mercer today.
Yeah.
Did you see that? And I guess it's National Lemon Meringue Pie Day too, but more than that, 8:15 is your 8 to 15. How did you get up there?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I knew that I wouldn't be a lifetime youth ministry guy at one point. It was probably our third summer camp, and when it was like, okay, I'm definitely not going to be doing this my whole life. But I knew that I needed to be in an environment where I was really challenged with leadership issues at a large scale. I wanted to see how can I handle that. And I remember our pastor at the time, my pastor, as I was a youth pastor, we did this thing that we put on this event, and it was largely young people and their families, and we packed the church out. It was like the church was not very often packed at all. And this event packed it out. And I mean, we probably had 500 people there for a church that normally had 200. And it just was like, this is the way this church should be. And in terms of the amount of people that should be here. And so I'm in the lobby and saying hi to people. He's saying hi to people. Afterwards, everyone left. And I said, I was so excited. I said, man, all these people. I said, this is going to happen every week. We're going to have people here all the time. And he just looks at me and he goes, Jeremy, more people, more problems. And he walked away. And I went, oh no, he doesn't like this. He doesn't like this. I thought, oh, he's one of those guys. He would rather have a few people and he's a shepherd. He's an incredible human being. He's just a shepherd. And so I knew right then that my fate was sealed there. I wasn't going to be able to do the evangelism stuff we wanted to do. So I had been up to the desert because my friend, who's now my executive pastor, he was at a church up there at a school, Hesperia Christian School. Mm-hmm. And he asked me to come and speak at their chapel. And so I spoke at their chapel. And I'll never forget. My wife and I are driving up there, and it's 100 and something degrees. The wind is blowing. There's tumbleweeds everywhere. And I just looked at her. I said, oh, I feel so bad for Chad and Kelly, our friends. I said, they have to be up here in this. Like this, there's nothing here. It's just a desert. And I just was like, oh, I feel bad. So we do the chapel, and the executive pastor at the time for the church and the school, he was both. He asked me, hey, would you consider our youth pastor position up here? It's a position where you would teach in the school, but you'd also be a youth pastor for the church. And I just said, no, my next step is going to be adult ministries. I'm not going to go from youth ministry to youth ministry. And so he goes, oh, that's interesting. I just had lunch with a guy named Jack Hamilton, and they're looking for an adult ministries pastor. And so he put me in contact with Jack, and Jack, of course, the executive at High Desert Church. Jack had us come up and meet with the team, check out High Desert. But we didn't get to the church. We ate at a Marie Callender's up there in the desert. And again, it was 100 and something degrees, and the wind is blowing. There's tumbleweeds everywhere. And Jack goes, so would you consider, coming up for this adult ministries position we have? And we just said later on the phone, I said, no, thank you. Thanks. That was nice to meet you, but we don't think that's, something we're going to do. And he goes, would you come to a service? Just no obligation. Just come up for a service. We'll have you for the weekend. You can meet the team and all that stuff. And so that's what we did. We ended up going up to a service, and we prayed about it because we just thought, no, that door's closed. We're not going up there. But it was a church that was thriving, and it was such a unique situation. I thought, man, the desert, what's going on here? And we saw the service, heard Tom preach, and it just, man, the Lord just really spoke to our heart in that service. And we looked at each other and it was like, wow, this is the place where we want to be. Like, we want to learn, we want to grow. And the job was so many things. It was men's, it was women's ministry, it was singles, it was sports ministry. And it was exactly what I had been thinking as far as next level. Can you handle this kind of leadership, multifaceted? You're going to have to really learn to delegate and raise leaders up and train people and all of that. And so it took 8 months. It took 8 months of interviews with different people and prayer. And we finally, we're there. So that's how we ended up at High Desert.
So it's an 8-month process to go from San Diego to Victorville. That's what.
Yep.
Okay.
And it was amazing. We got there and there was no Starbucks, and I was a big Starbucks guy at the time. And it was like, what do we do? Like, there's nothing here. But immediately stuff started popping up, and we had heard that 3,000 people were moving there a month. New communities were just popping up. They were building like crazy. They're building roads. They're building, and it continues to this day. There was a ton of people moving there because of the cheaper housing. You can get a house that was still reasonable for Southern California, and you're not very far from a lot of things. Now they do have a lot of things there now. It's been 2001 is when we first moved up there. So it's been a lot of years, and a lot of Starbucks later. They have plenty of those now. And it's grown a ton up there in the high desert overall. So we ended up loving it. We ended up loving it 100%.
Okay. A lot of years, a lot of Starbucks, but that you got a church planting bug then, right? How'd that happen?
Yeah. Well, so I was there, let's see, 2002, Jack, after being there about 6 months or 8 months, he had said, hey, we want you to start a singles service. And I say, well, let me look into that. Like, let me research that. And we were up at Mount Hermon, and Dan Kimball had a church, a young adult service. He had a Vintage Faith, I think, was the church he ended up planting, but it was something similar to that, Vintage something. And so we went, Graceland, he called it, Graceland. And so we went and talked to Dan. We're like, hey, how do you do this? What are you doing? And because it was thriving. And so there was a lot of different kind of vibe to it. Art, Santa Cruz was an artsy place. And so he had some art stuff to it, but it was a really good message, good worship. And I thought, man, these kids look at how young people everywhere. And it was in a more traditional kind of church. And even though High Desert Church wasn't traditional, it was still boomer focused. And so it was like, well, we could probably hit Gen X, if we did something a little different in our service. And so I told Jack, I was like, hey, we're not going to do a single. I don't think singles is the way, because as I researched a bunch of singles, it comes a meat market. You got 45-year-olds hitting on 18-year-olds. I said, it's probably not the best way to go. But based off the research, I said, we could just call it young adult service and just open it up for people. And it's going to be different. Older people might not like it because it's just different. And so that got started. It grew. It was the only thing kind of like that happening in the high desert. So it was a natural attraction to young adults. Mm-hmm. Instead of having to go 45 minutes to an hour down the hill to find something, it was there. And it immediately just took off. And so that was where it was like, oh, look at this. And we basically planted a church within a church, because they said, you build the team, you do what you want, but you have the safety of the mother church. Basically, you don't have to worry about your salary or raising funds or things like that, but it's go for it. And that freedom allowed us to build a team and do things uniquely. And after 5 years, it was like, hey, what if we did this kind of a thing as its own church? Like that, what about that? So my original thought was to plant it out of High Desert, in the High Desert. Like, hey, let's do a church in Apple Valley, because Apple Valley was 15, 20 minutes away. And then it just, as we talked through it, it became, because I was on the teaching team at the church. And so it became kind of a thing where I felt like they never said, no, you can't do that. I just felt like it might be a little divisive. It might feel like I was splitting the church or trying to split the church. So then it became a prayer of where, and looked at the stats. There was, at the time, the 5 fastest growing places in America. One of them was Chula Vista, San Diego. So it was like, well, I'm from that area. I know that area. And we decided we were going to plant a church back in San Diego, even though, McKinney, Texas was on the list at the time. I thought about going to McKinney, Texas, Boise, Idaho thought about going there, and then it just made sense. I'm from the area. I know the language. It made sense to go there. But the way I got the bug was I was at a Saddleback conference, and there was a breakout on church planting. And I'm like, church planting? And the guy came up, he did a 1-minute thing. And he goes, every church that exists was started by somebody. And I never thought of that. I never thought of that. And I was like, that's interesting. That's true. And so I went to the church planting breakout every day of the conference. It was like 4 days or something. And I was fascinated. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to plant a church. But then I said, I love where I'm at. I love what we're doing. I don't think I need to do that. And they had this church plant coaching thing that you can do, and to just see if that's something. I was like, oh, that's cool. And so once a month for 6 months, you go to Saddleback, and you're there all day, and you're there learning about church planting from church planters and from people that are either just planted or are thinking about planting, or anywhere in between. So we had about 20 people in this class. Dave Page was coaching, was one of the teachers. And then the guy from, I'm forgetting his name now, but he's from Florida.
His name.
Books.
I was connected with that. Dave's a friend, and you're talking about the guy that's north of Orlando, and anyway.
Yep. And so,
We'll figure out his name.
Yeah, I'm looking for the book I have of his, a couple of his books. But yeah, so
nuts and bolts church planting stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, we went through that book in that class. And here's what I loved about it. I'm sitting back because I'm not sure. And the guys that were just about ready to plant had brought their outreach material / advertising, what they're doing in the community to get the word out. And direct mail was still, even though we know the stats on it, it was still effective enough to get you a crowd if you did it right. And so they bring their direct mail pieces. Like, this is what's going out to 20,000 people in our community, or 40,000 people. And these people are really excited about it. And these guys looked at it and they go, that's terrible. Like, I would never come to this church. And they just were really honest. And so I knew if I had some ideas that I thought might work, they're going to tell me the truth. I wanted the truth. And like one name of the church, what's your name? What's the name of your church going to be, and why? And someone said the name of their church, and they're like, okay, so you only want certain people to go to that church. Like, that's a very narrow name. That's only going to reach a very narrow group of people. And so stuff like that got me going, wow, okay, these guys are really going to help me figure this out. So that's when I really started praying about, okay, maybe I'm supposed to plant a church. And that really got the bug going. Then I just started on a research, like everything I could read on it, everything I could do to start figuring it out.
So you got to Chula Vista, and everything went super well, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So we decided on Chula Vista. Love the area. So many new houses, schools. They have these ideas of building villages. They're going to build a village, and it's all going to be self-sustained within that village. But then they'll build another village, and they'll have the same kind of things. You could walk. They want it to be a walking kind of thing. And so we get there. They built 2 villages out of 11. They're going to build 11. And so we're ready to hit the ground running. And this is 2007, getting ready to launch in 2008, when the housing market just fell out. And so we had 177 people from High Desert Church that had committed to coming with us to be our launch team. And they couldn't sell their house in the desert. Either could we. We couldn't sell ours either. But we had a plan, and we're going regardless. And so we tried to sell our house, tried to sell it, couldn't sell it. So we decided to try to rented it out, but all the while having to pay San Diego rent, all of that. And so it was a huge challenge. It was just a huge challenge. And we got down there with the promise from an organization that had a vision for San Diego. We won the there's all these still today where you put your prospectus in front of them and you have to pitch what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we won, which was $500,000, which was amazing. And then we got here, but there was a new president of the organization. I brought my 4 people that were supposed to be full-time because they said, we want you to launch large. And we got on the ground. They said that money's not there. The new president doesn't want that. That isn't part of the vision of the new president. I said, well, that's too bad. Like we're here and we're going, and you're going to take that money away.
Welcome to the church planting world of dealing with church planting organizations.
Oh, I learned those lessons then and then for the next year. The good news of that was I said, well, then I'm not going to be just you. Like, I'm not going to be just connected to you. I need to go raise money with other organizations. And they said, yeah, that's fine. So that's when we became the NASCAR Church of Church Planting, which a lot of people do now. But, if you'll give us money, we'll throw your sticker on the side of our church. I mean, it was just, we needed money we have people down there with their families. And so that was one struggle after another. We launched in the brand new school, beautiful auditorium, portable church. We paid the full Mountie for that. We had raised a lot of money. We raised just about $1 million to get this thing started. So it was a blessing in disguise that we didn't get that full amount, because we would have been just stuck with that group. So, we launch, and then the school says, we'll see you next month. And we're like, what? Next week. We're launched full time now, because we did 4 preview services. They thought that's what we're going to do, is just once a month. They said, no, we already have events planned. So we had to go immediately to a theater, which hadn't been built yet, but got done just in time, because we originally wanted the theater. So we signed a contract with the theater. So we bumped back over to the theater. We're there 6 months, started growing. And another church found a loophole in a contract and planted and said, it's our theater now. And we met with that leadership and said, hey, man, this is the kingdom. Like, what are you talking about? You got found a loophole in the contract. And they said, well, that's how we do it. We find the best spot in town and we pay whatever it takes to get the best spot. And I was like, oh, and Dave Page came and helped try to mediate this thing. It was unbelievable what we were hearing. And we got kicked out. We got kicked out of theater by this church that hadn't started yet. And I just couldn't believe it. And we went down the street to an elementary school. We were there 4 months, went back to the high school. And one thing after another. So first year, our average attendance was 125. And I had thought we'd be, 500 or something in my mind. I'm thinking this is going to be so fast growth. So then the next year in Chula Vista, second year, and I mean, we're doing everything, events, advertising. I mean, you name it. We're in every school, we're doing everything. And we grew massively that second year from 125 to 127. And it was like, we gained 2 people after all that effort, 2 people. And I was really discouraged. And then this lakeside opportunity opened up, my hometown, and we did a multi-site deal. And we did that for about 6 months, and Lakeside was just taking off. And we said, let's pull all of our resources over to Lakeside instead of, I was starting in Lakeside, then driving to Chula Vista. And we did that. And then it just started taking off. And I tell people, man, I think we had the right strategy. I think we had the right people. We just didn't have the right timing. The timing in Chula Vista wasn't right. The timing in Lakeside was perfect. They had nothing going on in Lakeside. Nothing. It's just like what happened in the desert. There was nothing going on. All the kids came. There was nothing going on in Lakeside. All of a sudden there's a church that's outreach focused, thinking about the community. And it just started taking off from there.
Wow. Hey, shout out to Ron Sylvia. The name popped back.
There
up.
it is. That's it. Ron Sylvia. Yes,
I think it's Ocala, Florida.
Yes.
Anyway, hey, we've taken a bunch of your time, and we didn't even get to Skyline. You're at Skyline now, and maybe we can get that story another time. But I want to honor your time. Hey, you've dropped a few in, but just give us a couple leadership tips for people who are planting or just leaders, you've done amazing things and God's using you immensely right now. Give us a couple leadership ideas.
I think a big one is those people around you make a big difference, right? It's the people, your right-hand man, your right-hand person has to be that person. Like, you got to be able to trust that person. We had a leadership debacle. My right-hand person tried to take the church. I mean, just how many people have that story?
I remember that day. That's just,
Yeah. And it was ugly and it was brutal. But it was one of those things where, the Bible's really clear not to anoint someone too soon. And I looked at their gifting and charisma over their character, their heart, and that was a big mistake. And so I think we've come up with 6 things that we look for in every staff member. And the first one is humility. If they don't have humility, they're not going to be useful. I don't care how talented they are. We say it all the time, heart over hype, 100%. I want someone's heart, that they really have a heart, a humble heart. God will use that, but prideful people, no matter how talented they are, it just can't be utilized, because they'll ruin it. They'll ruin it. So that was big. That was a huge lesson. Also, being very secure as a leader, to be able to have an open hand in ministry, and especially in church planting. Whenever someone would come, we'd have a great staff member, and we're smaller than the big church in town, but I gathered some talented people, and the big church would get them, and they'd come to me and say, hey, I got this offer from such and such church, and it's, and I would say, hey, if that's what God's calling you to do, and it's going to help your family more, I got no problem with that. You do that. God will bring us someone else. And every time he did, man, every time. And that goes with church planting too. Have an open hand to church plant. I put it into people's minds early on. Hey, maybe God's calling you to plant a church. Like, you're on staff here. It's awesome. But maybe pray about it. Maybe God's calling you to learn some things here at Skyline, and then maybe you're supposed to go and plant. And so that kind of gets the bug going, and people thinking about, and they'll come and ask more questions about it. We've had lots of guys come and ask about it. Maybe I'm supposed to plant, and we'll walk through it. And I'll say, I'll coach you through that. Let's talk through it. Some have said, you know what, it's not yet. Others have said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and plant. So I think being secure as a leader, then picking the right people around you is 2 humongous things. And not forgetting this last one, I'll tell you, is just your devotional life. I think so many pastors just do the work of the ministry, and they don't have a time where they're in the Bible reading or listening to the Bible, or even praying, or having a journal or anything like that. You don't have to have a journal, but writing down prayer, the answers prayers, or typing them in, or whatever, I think is an important part of staying true. And I think a lot of guys, with only 1 in 10 pastors actually being able to retire as a pastor, most of them leave because of moral failure. And I think we get into this mindset of, I just got to do the work of the ministry, but I'm not really a person of the ministry. And so that's something that has to happen. You got to have that devotional life first, and not just to prepare a message, but just because of who you should be in your connection with the Lord. Those are things that have been key, certainly in my ministry life.
Wow, those are really really cool things. Thank you for the reminder on those, because ask a lot of people for tips. I think the thing about the devotional life keeps coming up, but the other 2 that you mentioned were just really good. Well, hey, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your story. It's really cool to see what God is doing in you and through you, and I'm just expecting more great things in the future. So thanks for being here.
Glad to do it, man. Anytime. Thanks, JD.
Thanks for joining the Leading Conversations podcast. We hope that you found it both helpful and encouraging. At Excel Leadership Network, our focus is on the church planter rather than the church. If you'd like to find out more about us, visit our webpage at excelnetwork.org. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. See you next time with another Leading Conversation.